Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that thought about doing the whole episode with its back turned to the camera, just like Yankee fans did to Juan Soto. But we cooler heads prevailed at the end of the day, just like they did in New York. They didn't last very long doing that. You had guys peeking over their shoulder, doing everything they could to watch the game. But I'm Dallas. That's Drew. That's Matt. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about the owners voting in the NFL. A little later on, we'll talk about NFL in the Olympics. And then a little later on in the show, we will also talk about, we're going to go over some of our predictions for the MLB season that we made before the year started and talk about where we were right and where we were wrong so far. But before we get to all that, we will start with our warm-ups for today. So our warm-up topic for today, I mentioned it at the top of the show. The Mets played the Yankees in the first ever rivalry weekend, and there was a lot that came out of that series, mostly around Juan Soto, the player who, played for the Yankees over the course of the last season and now plays for the Mets. Yankee fans gave him the welcome that you would expect them to give him, chorus of boos in his first at-bat. And then Juan Soto did a lot in that series that was people felt that was worth commenting on. So we want to start today with a topic that isn't just about Juan Soto, but certainly includes him right now, which is, what is a superstar's obligation to the team that they play for? A lot of the talk around Juan Soto over the course of rivalry weekend was that, things like he didn't want to be mic'd up for Sunday Night Baseball. He refused to do it. He didn't want to be asked questions during the game, probably mostly because he knew what those questions would be about and didn't want to talk about that. But there were also people observing that he looked upset or miserable in the dugout because he didn't seem to be having that good a time. And in the following series against the Red Sox, in the first game of that series, there was something that he did that was, people felt necessary to comment on. So we'll talk about that as well. But my first question that I want to start with is the role of the superstar, not only in baseball, but in football too. We can talk about that. When you're the face of the franchise, you get paid the big contract.
Yeah.
Something that happens that I don't understand fully is that fans, both of the team that they play for and of the sport in general, as soon as someone gets the big contract, they seem to be looking for ways to undermine this person, undermining their effort, undermining their personality, their lack of personality or their too much personality. So why do you think guys think that happens? And let's start our discussion there.
I think,
Well, yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I'll make this quick because this isn't like fully a point, but I think when it comes to this conversation of how a superstar is supposed to represent their team or their city or their franchise, whatever, kind of what you're saying, the face of the franchise, I think it's not even so much. And I do think there are a lot of people who do go out of their way to look to tear these guys down. But I also think you have to look is the behavior consistent with who they were before the contract? Because if that's who the player's always been, and now that they have the contract, they're just getting the notoriety, or sometimes when a small market team has a superstar and they get that national attention from a contract, their behaviors, which were more known to the local fans, are now being seen at a much broader scale. I think that can sometimes impact it too. I think a lot of times when you're the fan of the team that signs a home, especially when it's a homegrown guy, a lot of times you're not actually super shocked by their behaviors because you've probably seen them and have already known them. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question per se, but that's kind of just the first thought I had is there's definitely context to the conversation. I feel like when it comes to any star athlete of any team sport.
Yeah, I think being a star or being really good at what you do, oftentimes people make a connection in their head that that must mean you are also a good leader or like a good person or a good example or whatever. And that just, and we know this from our own lives and our own jobs and everything, that's just not always the case. Sometimes lightning strikes and it's perfect, and you get a guy like I'll use Mookie Betts as an example. I think
Yep.
he's a really good leader. He's also clearly an excellent player. Um, and it works that way. Derek Jeter was a star player and he was the captain and all that. That's just you just can't count on that happening all the time. And I think more teams than not, their best player, maybe their most notable player, the so-called face of their franchise. Uh-oh, there goes Dallas. Um,
Cut
the
that. Cut
so-called
that.
the so-called face of their franchise uh, is not always the leader in the clubhouse. Um, and I think maybe fans don't recognize that all the time. Like, I know that we can talk about the Red Sox a little bit because Rafael Devers is one of these guys that kind of gets put under the microscope because he has the massive contract. He's the longest tenured player on the Red Sox right now. But like you were saying, Matt, he has always been consistent. He's never been the leader type. He's always been more reserved, more quiet. Um, and so he gets, uh, kind of roped into these expectations that are not necessarily fair based on everything he's done. He got paid his contract because of how well he hits the baseball. And the same can be said for Juan Soto, and the same can be said for Bryce Harper, and like all these guys. And some of them have the leadership capabilities, and some of them don't. And it just is what it is. Juan Soto, I just want to credit him because how often do we see a guy play in a place for one season, they did not win the World Series one season, and then to be treated like this, which, hey, it's fair. Like if you're a Yankees fan, totally boo him, turn your back on him. Like that's fine. That's how sports work. It's I think it's fun and whatever. Get mad, but I mean credit to his season he had last year to to bring about that reaction from Yankees fans, feeling so betrayed by him when he was. This is not a homegrown guy. This is not someone they like drafted or signed when he was super young and developed and got to see him blossom into a star. They traded for him, and then he owed them nothing. In the at the end of the day, he didn't sign with them. So yeah, he's going through it a little bit right now, and there's some questions of hustle and stuff. I think it's just the microscope being on someone who gets paid the biggest contract in baseball. Um, you know, talk to me in 10 years and tell me, let's see how good Juan Soto did. It could be that the Mets and Juan Soto regret it. It could be. I am going to wait a little bit and not overreact in May of the first season of the deal, but yeah, I think sometimes it's just unfair expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it's a good transition to my next question, which is, the big thing that happened in the Red Sox series was in the first game of that series, Juan Soto sort of stared down a fly ball because he thought it might clear the monster, or at least, where it needed to clear to be a home run. And it ended up not clearing that, and he only made it to first base when he could have made it to second. And so this was just more fuel to the fire that came from the Yankee series that kind of carried over. And so there is a question of, does Juan Soto does he have a hustle problem? Does the money make him lazy, et cetera, et cetera? You think about guys like Anthony Rendon, for whom that is absolutely true. And so my question for that is, what do you guys feel like about the idea of, calling out Juan Soto having potentially a hustle problem just based on this event here?
Andrew, if
I'm
you want
not,
to take it.
yeah, I'm not super concerned about that. I think what I will say is it's not a good look when Juan Soto is struggling at the plate over the last couple weeks. Um, his year as a whole is not up to the standard that he has set for himself based on past seasons. He's still doing pretty good overall, but just not to the same Juan Soto levels that we've come to expect. And I think it happens all the time. You think you get a hold of one, you want to want to admire it a little bit. You made a mistake. That's what happened. He made a mistake. Um, but I think, yeah, if you know, if you're Juan Soto and you know, like, okay, people are kind of watching me closely, and I'm not performing to my expectations, I need to hustle this out for now anyway, just to, kind of get people off my back. The funny thing is about that play in particular is, first of all, tons of balls hit the monster and end up being singles for guys who are hustling and guys who aren't. It's just the nature of playing at Fenway Park. Um, but secondly, he immediately, the next pitch, stole second base successfully. So to me, I think he's like, oh shoot, I just made a, that was a mistake. I should not have done that. Here, let me fix it really quick. And he does, and he's in the same position he would have been anyways. Um, I think to me, it's like, okay, he just showed that he understands what he did was wrong, and we can move past it. Obviously, that's not the way sports media works. Um, but yeah, I think, if he doesn't want these kind of accusations and questions, then yeah, he should hustle out every ball he hits. If he's not concerned about that, then I trust his ability. Like he'll be a perfectly fine hitter, and we might forget about these questions in a little bit.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add on to that too, because I know one of the other plays that was kind of brought into question was towards the end of the game. He hit a ball to second base, like pretty routine ground out play, and he kind of just jogged to first, and people were like, "Oh, you got to put pressure on the defense." And yada. As someone who I would still say came into, baseball fanship recently, that was something that took me a while to get used to was really not a ton of players are all out sprinting to first base on a ground ball. It's more common to see a guy jog it out because the reality of it is too, I think is, people get so locked in one game, and we've talked about this like as fans, like I get so distraught over one game, over one series, over, and it's such a long season that sometimes you have to kind of dial it back and be like, okay, does the risk outweigh the reward? Is a single worth the risk of, him sprinting and pulling his hamstring or taking an awkward fall at first? I mean, Red Sox fans should know about that. Like
Hmm.
it's one of those things I think for people who are multi-sport fans, it definitely is a weird thing to get used to. And I do want to say that as a whole, it took me a while to get used to watching, Manny Machado. I don't think I've ever seen him sprint to first base. He will not do it. He'll sprint to first base if it's maybe going to be a double. But if it's a single, he walks to first. And it's just one of those things, at some point you have to weigh the risk reward, and you're trying to carry yourself through 162 games. Like it's not the same as other sports where you can full send for 60 minutes and clock out. Like you have to be ready to play tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day and then the next day and the next day. Like
Yeah.
it's such a marathon versus a sprint like a lot of other sports. So yeah, I don't know. I
Well,
think it's kind of a non-issue. I think at the same time, it's like you're saying, it's up to him if he wants to keep getting the questions. Like if he wants to continue being questioned for it, dude, yeah, sprint it out. But if you're just like, it doesn't bother me if the media talks, like you got your bag and you're a good player, then do you, man? I don't know.
well, and I just to piggyback off your point about the long season, it's like I think that should be a reason to you can celebrate the guys who do hustle every play and not necessarily have to tear down the guys who don't because yeah, sometimes you should. If the game's on the line, if it's going to be close, if blah blah blah, I'd like to see hustle. And there are
Yeah,
managers bench their players for lack of hustle. It happens. But then in like you talking about other sports like NBA, they're maybe they hustle most plays, but then the stars sit out for big chunks of time. It's like load management and all that. So, and I'll bring up a recent Red Sox example. Jaron Duran is a guy who hustles all over the park. He's like an example for little league kids in that sense. He played 160 games last year. He was suspended for two. That's the only reason he didn't play a full season. And by the last month, he was stealing no bases anymore because his body was just so worn down.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you hustled every play and that's great and you had a great year, but like at what cost? Because you could have, you know, 20% of the ground balls that you were going to be out either way if you take a little off or if you take a few games off here and there, like just on the bench or whatever. Like, I think you're absolutely right. You got to weigh the risk and reward, and fans and sports media personalities often just see the isolated moment and think, oh, that you can't be that way.
Yeah, every reaction I've seen to this whole situation is piggybacking to specific moments, right? They're not looking at the game as a whole. On top of that, you got to look at the position he plays. It's not, credit where credit's due. I think about guys like Matt Olson, who kind of just always play and never take a break. He plays first base. That that matters. Like
A
it's
little less
different to,
grind on the body, yeah.
yeah, it's like that matters when you talk about longevity and your ability to be there and hustle and do all those things is you also think like Juan Soto is in the outfield. Like my man's is not doing nothing throughout the game. He might not be great at it, but he's still hustling out there. He's still working. Like there's just so much context involved with it that I think has been ignored that I think it's undeserved. But at the same time, when you make, $700 million contract, even if it's undeserved, you also, I think, need to answer for it. I don't love the antics of like not talking to media, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to, the superstar making the big money, fans will behave the way they'd like to behave, and, media will, you know, the thing that drives people to read your newspaper, to click on your article, to, you know, click the link in your post is if you're talking about the big guy, right? And so I think that can be what it comes down to as well, at least a piece of it. And so they definitely got their money's worth from Juan Soto over the weekend. But let's keep the MLB talk rolling here as we roll into our MLB segment for our show today. I want to start with a larger look at rivalry weekend. It was the MLB's first attempt at a weekend like this, where you're, highlighting geographical, rivalries, for lack of a better term. So, my first question about rivalry weekend is, do you guys see any real rivalries that didn't already exist? Being a thing after, this weekend. Are you circling any that you didn't already have for next season? Are you looking forward to, Padres, Mariners, or Nationals, Orioles? What do you guys think? Any real new rivalries coming out of this based on what happened?
I never want to play the Mariners again. Just in all honesty, that was a tough stretch of games. We're still in a tough stretch of games, but no, I think the idea as a whole was fun, but kind of like we mentioned last time it got brought up, I feel like it's a missed opportunity to just have rivalry weekend be the actual rivals. Like, I don't think that we needed to create new rivals. And like, we're gonna get into this and kind of, what my favorite series of the weekend was. But like, I think about Drew's team, right? It should be Red Sox Yankees. I understand the New York versus New York, the Subway Series, there's something fun to that. And in the same kind of breath and in the same vein, it's like that's not the actual rivalry that I think people want to see long term. And maybe it's fun because of we got the Soto drama a little bit. Um, it feels shallow to me. Like it feels like a lot of because there's also the teams like San Diego versus the Mariners. They tried to make it like the whole like Vetter Cup thing and
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, and they interviewed gosh, I think it was Julio or someone had a big play against or no, it was J.P. Crawford. Um, and they're interviewing him after one of the games, and they're like, "Yeah, and what's your favorite song by Pearl Jam?" And he's like, the one." And it's like, yeah, they don't care about that. Like that man had
Well,
never
I
listened to
also
Pearl Jam
think
in his
Eddie,
life.
just like a side note, I'm pretty sure Eddie Vedder is like famously a Cubs fan. So it's like,
Yeah, famously
Right,
a
right.
Cubs fan, and it's just a thing of like grew up San Diego, got famous in Seattle, but is a Cubs fan. And then they tried to force the Vetter Cup on us. And they're like, this is going to keep going. And, the all-time records and blah, blah. And it's like,
It could
I
just be
just,
like the two cities that are enjoyable to visit Cup.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, man, two beautiful coastal cities, Cup.
Um,
So, yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's kind of silly to market it as big rivalries, but at the same time, um, like so little like not to go too deep into the history, but like it used to be there was no interleague play at all until the World Series. And so these teams never played each other until it was like the mid 90s when we started doing that. Um, and then it's only been in recent years, like since the Astros moved to the American League, that there was interleague throughout the whole season. So like it's fairly recent, all this stuff. So it is kind of funny to me that they're like these are rivalries now. But at the same time, some of them are, and we just like because we're not from the region or whatever, we don't think of it that way. But like growing up in Southern California, there was real vitriol between Dodgers fans and Angels fans, and they played
Yeah.
each other once a year. But it was like that was a real rivalry, and it hasn't felt like it in recent years because the Dodgers have been like such a shining example of how a baseball team should function versus the Angels being the opposite side of that. And we'll get to that series, but um, I think Mets and Yankees has always been kind of a rivalry for the fans, and I don't know about some of the other regions, like when they're further away from each other. Like I don't know if Royals and Cardinals are a real rivalry. They just happen to play in the same state, but they're on different sides. I don't know if people really care about that. Uh, but in terms of are there going to be real rivalries that come out of this? I don't think so. But I will say specifically Mets and Yankees, I think there is there is some real juice there for a rivalry in a way there is not for these other matchups. And there was some drama with them a few years back with like Lindor and Giancarlo Stanton. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it was, I mean, it like this Juan Soto situation we just talked about. It has brought it to a whole nother level out there in New York, and both teams being good, it makes it that much more intriguing. But as well, like Braves Red Sox, okay, like I I don't think I'll ever hate the Braves. Like I don't think that'll, like um, I respect the Braves. In some ways, they were a good matchup for this, like two teams with high expectations that are around 500. But um, yeah, I think a lot of it is just well, they have to have someone as a rival.
Yeah, I think the issue for me that I see is it's like you're absolutely right. I mean, like the regional ones, like two LA teams, two New York teams, like that makes sense. And even though those aren't like the top rivalries, you could still consider them, rivals. It's just such a stretch for the other like 90% of the league that isn't, the few metropolitan areas that have multiple teams in it. Because
Yeah.
it just feels so stretched and like such a reach to me. Um,
Well,
and
even some that are close geographically, like, do you think there's enough Marlins and Rays fans that they're like, F the Rays, F the Marlins? Like, I just don't think that exists, you know?
Yeah, and it's just I don't know. I felt like it just created like a reach for most fan bases where a lot of us watched our series and were like, Okay, cool. Like
Yeah, it
this
didn't
is
cross my mind once that, like, oh, this is rivalry. It's just like,
yeah,
okay, they're playing the
I've watched
Braves.
every single game of the Mariners series and all I kept hearing was Vetter Cup, Vetter Cup, Vetter Cup, and it's like, sweet man, I'm cool. We're listening to Pearl Jam all weekend, but like I'm not sitting here like those damn Mariners, bro. Like I hate Seattle, bro. Like it didn't. I don't know. It didn't feel like anything to me. Like I'm sure it did for Yankees, Mets fans, or Dodgers, Angels fans. And I think that's also an extension of MLB was probably just looking for another reason to pump up their stars. If you think about the three faces of baseball right now, realistically, they all three played in those two series. Like Shohei, Judge, Soto.
Mhm.
it, it was kind of a perfect storm, and the fact that Shohei is the Angels Dodgers, Soto is Yankees Mets, like it those were two like perfectly crafted series for this weekend, and I think they just kind of made it into a thing just cause.
Yeah. I think we can end that part of the conversation with saying that all of us who watch sports know that the best rivalries happen naturally. They gotta happen organically, and it's hard for them to happen. For God's sakes, the Angels and the Red Sox played each other in the playoffs like a million times in the 2000s and 2010s, and even the beginning, just the very beginning of the 2010s. And they're not even like rivals like that,
Not
you know.
now. Back then there was I would get a lot of people mad at me for being a Red Sox fan back in the day, but it's
But
kind
it
of
doesn't
run
stick.
solid
It
now.
doesn't have that
Yeah.
staying. It doesn't have that staying through multiple generations type of thing. And
Hmm.
so, it's very hard to do it. And the best ones, they happen naturally.
Yep.
Continuing our discussion of rivalry weekend, I just wanted to ask you guys what your favorite and least favorite series were. So let's start with our least favorites, and let's start with Drew. What was your least favorite series from rivalry weekend?
Well, I mean, this is a cop out, I guess, but my least favorite was the Red Sox Braves series. Now, the Red Sox did have their first come from behind victory of the year. I mean, maybe not technically, but it was their first time trailing after the sixth inning and coming back and winning this year, which took way too long for that to happen. Uh, but they lost the other two games. They refused to build any momentum, and I'll talk more about them when we get to fan corner. But uh, yeah, it was just a drag. The two games we lost were just not like just not fun to watch. And I didn't watch. To be fair, there's 15 series. Um, I didn't watch all of them, but um, that one definitely got under my skin.
All right, yeah. Continuing least favorite, Matt, hit it.
Yeah, least favorite. Sorry, I was zoning out. My least favorite, I think, had to be. I mean, this. Here's the issue. I didn't like go around baseball watching a bunch of these series because I genuinely didn't care. For me, the least favorite was New York versus New York because I hate New York sports teams, just as like a general thing. I'm pretty like anti New York. And so for me, it's just like, okay, we're just getting all this, pumped up media of all the players there. We're seeing Judge, we're seeing Soto, we're seeing all this drama. And it's like, there's cool things that happened that weekend that really didn't get talked about, posted about, whatever. So I called that one my least favorite. I don't know if that's like a good reason for it, but, you know, New York.
Yeah, I get
You
it.
know,
It's just the one that you were forced to hear the most about.
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely the one that was shoved down everybody's throat. It was the Sunday night game, and everything like that.
Yeah.
For whatever that means for baseball in 2025, the Sunday night game, I don't know that it means all that much these days, and especially considering the fact that it won't be a thing anymore starting next year. Yeah, so let's go to our favorites now. And well, I'm looking at the show notes here, and looks like we have the same favorite. So let's talk about this series. Drew, tee it up, tell us what it is, and then we can just kind of talk about it for a little while.
Well, yeah, to preface this, Dallas, I if it weren't for you, I don't know if this would be my favorite. But at the same time, it just, David versus Goliath, the sad little brother who can never do anything right versus the older brother, golden child, who does seemingly everything perfect, everything goes their way. The Dodgers played the Angels in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium, a mismatch if there ever was one, and the Angels went in there and they won the first game, they won the second game, and then on Sunday they went for the sweep and they got it done. Uh, Very fun, uh, for Angels fans with the expectations of the season. They probably don't include the playoffs or the World Series, but if you want to look at moments throughout the year where you can feel good about your baseball team, this has to be a weekend for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I listed this too. Just, a little contradictory to what I've said before about, just having markets force fed on us. But for me, this is my favorite because it's just the perfect hate watch. Like, if I had to have a secondary team, it probably would be the Angels just because my family's Angels fans. I grew up in Orange County. Like, this is kind of my hometown team, if you will. Um, but seeing the Dodgers get swept and meaning our series against the Mariners meant nothing because, we also got like, it was just perfect. After every game, I got to, I close out my Padres game and go look at the Dodgers score to see they lose and just be like, that keeps giving me hope. And the fact that they're on a skid right now too makes me so happy because we just got swept by the freaking Blue Jays. And oh, we'll get to that. But I honestly, this is my favorite purely based off of a hate watching perspective.
Yeah, look, it happened in real life. That much we can say. It happened in real
Gas
life.
it up, Dallas. Gas it up.
It happened without Mike Trout in the lineup. It happened uh, without. I mean, the pitching matchups were not. The Dodgers didn't send. It wasn't time for the Dodgers' best to go. To be sure, the Angels did not have to face Yamamoto. And the Dodgers have a lot of pitchers who wouldn't have been able to pitch anyway, even if it was their turn. But the Angels, it's Kokanowitz, it's Tyler Anderson,
Who?
who's actually having a good year this year. But and then I forget who pitched the middle game. But see, that's why you can't even remember. Like, who pitched the middle game? I don't remember.
It was
And
Kershaw
so
for the Dodgers. I
yes,
remember that.
Kershaw for the Dodgers in his return to the mound after a long time, which you know, that one you probably could have been like, yeah, that might not go great for the Dodgers, but they have the offense to make it up, and they almost did. That was the high scoring game, that Saturday one. So it was very funny to me that it happened that way. But my favorite part about it was on Friday I had to go out to Orange County for something on Friday evening, and I was just like, oh my God, thank goodness the series is here in LA and not in Anaheim, because I would never get there if, to the thing I had to go to if the series was the other way around. So that's the thing I was most grateful for, was that I didn't have to deal with Dodger fans flooding Angel Stadium on my way to Orange County. But good for the Angels. We'll talk a little bit more about the Angels later in Fan Corner, but good for them. They really, made the world see that, you can still do it. You can still beat the Dodgers, and you can still beat them. You can still sweep the Dodgers, even. That's something that's still possible if you try your hardest and believe hard enough. Uh, and just swing the bat always, and you'll make contact eventually. And they made a lot of it over that series. So yeah, great. Yeah, appreciate the love for the Angels against the Dodgers. They'll play again later, and so we'll see how it goes at Angel Stadium. We'll see how that one goes. All right, so moving on from that to what we wanted to spend most of our MLB segment doing here today, which is checking in on some of our preseason thoughts and predictions. We gave out performance reviews for quarter one for players a couple weeks ago. So it's only fair that we review ourselves as well 1 quarter into the season. So we can give it. Let's also take it. And so we wanted to pick a few of our predictions here, combination of some hits, some misses, with hopefully some emphasis on some big hits and some big misses, where we were right, where we were wrong so far this year. So you've each picked some teams, and so let's start with some places we were, where we were right. And so I want to start with Drew and share your selections for where we were right on some of these teams.
Yeah, so one that me and Matt were together on that I want to give us a little victory lap for. It didn't look so hot even just a couple weeks ago, but the Minnesota Twins in the American League Central, we both picked them to win that division. We both gave the caveat that it will be very close among the top four teams, and what do you know? We were right about that too. The Tigers are right now in first place. But the Guardians, Twins, and Royals are all tied essentially for second place. But the Twins have been on a real heater lately. They finally lost on Sunday, but they had a really long winning streak before that. It was something like 12 games or something, 13 games. I can't remember
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, a lot of games in a row. They got themselves right back into the playoff picture. Uh, and this is without like some of their studs playing this whole time. So um, we said if healthy, the Twins could win that division. Well, they're right there in the thick of it, playing really good baseball, and they're not necessarily that healthy. So I'm gonna say that was a hit on our part at this point in the season. Obviously, still a long ways to go. We'll revisit this throughout the year, but feeling good about that Twins pick right now.
Sweet. All right, and another hit. Let's go to Matt for another place we were right.
Yeah, and this is another one that was jointly shared by both Drew and I as well. But I feel like we hit on the Cubs, man. I mean, they were already like a pretty solid team. You could see a lot of the pieces were there, and they had a lot of good pieces. But the addition of Kyle Tucker was an absolute home run for them. And, some of their prospects, I mean, you look at what Pete Crow Armstrong's doing right now, and with the rise of their prospects, the addition of Kyle Tucker, I mean, this team has really taken off. Like, I would argue, you could say they're maybe the best team in the NL right now. You could argue it. Just holistically, the defense, the offense, the pitching, like they really do have a strong case. And I believe both of us said that they would win the division. I thought both of us said that they would kind of run away with it in the division. And I don't see that changing for the Cubs this season, barring something awful, because they look good.
Yeah, Pete Crow Armstrong, probably one of the more exciting players to watch
I
game
mean,
to game right
I
now.
was gonna say, did I see a thing that he was like the first player this season to hit the 3 WAR mark?
I think so. I think yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah, just crazy value.
because he's doing everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had one more thought about the Cubs. I want to give the Cubs their due, just because I want to, spend a couple minutes, because they're really, making a real good go of it here. And so the Cubs, how do you guys think they stack up against a team like the Dodgers or even a team like the Padres? If they continue their success, how do you think the Cubs stack up in? We could just talk about the top of the NL as a whole, because if trends continue, they'll be playing against those teams. And so, how do you guys feel they stack up, roster to roster?
Roster, I feel like they're in a really good spot. I mean, early in the season, they've already played a lot of these teams that are at the top of the NL, and they've done really well. They took it to the Dodgers in their series with them. I remember our first series against them, they really took it to us, and then we kind of had an evened out second series. But when you look at their roster, we talked about it in the offseason, like they have gold glovers scattered everywhere on this team. You mix that with solid starting pitching, and then their bats look good. Guys like Pete Crow Armstrong becoming such a good bat in the lineup just extends that lineup so much. So, I mean, I genuinely believe like this is a top 3 team in the NL at this point. Like pretty easily a top 3 team. Could be the top team depending on context and who you ask. But yeah, I think they're awesome. I think that they right now, aside from, I'd say right now they are, in my opinion, the team I think could really make the deepest push. A lot of the other teams at the top of the NL have pretty obvious glaring holes, and the Cubs are the one team that I look at and I'm not like, there's obviously an issue there. So I think they're good. I think they're real good.
Yeah, I like their chances. I'm really excited for the National League playoffs because I think you could make a case, especially by the end of the season, that the top 5, 6 teams in all of baseball are all National League teams. I know the Tigers are on a heater right now, but um, what concerns me about the Cubs versus the other top contenders in the National League. Let's say the Dodgers, Padres, Phillies, um, and then even if you throw like the Braves in there, I'll exclude the Mets, and you'll see why. But what worries me about the Cubs is their starting rotation, not because they are bad, because they are doing well right now, but because there are a lot of names that we have not seen in the playoffs and having playoff success. Whereas, I mean, the Dodgers rotation is kind of ravaged by injury right now, but if people come back for the playoffs, you'd feel real good about like, constructing a four-man rotation from the Dodgers pool of talent. The Padres, same thing, maybe less depth overall, but if you took four of their top four starting pitchers come playoff time, you feel really good about that. The Phillies, obviously, same thing. Um, the Cubs right now, Justin Steele is out for the whole year. Um, with I don't know if it was exactly Tommy John, but it was one of those UCL surgeries. And then Imanaga is hurt right now. It's just a hamstring, so I imagine he'll be back. But like the guys holding down the fort are not necessarily the guys you want starting game one of a playoff series. And so like Matthew Boyd, Colin Rea, Jameson Tyone, no disrespect to these guys, but it's just like if you got a Michael King game one, Dylan Cease game two, or if you have a Blake Snell game one, Yamamoto game two, Zach Wheeler, Jesus Luzardo, like that's where the matchup gets a little scary to me. But I will say they're playing great baseball. That lineup is as good as any, and this helps the pitching. That defense is outstanding. So I like the Cubs. I'm excited to see them in the playoffs. I'm excited to see what they potentially could do at the trade deadline. I'd love to see them add a top of the line type of starter if that's available. Trade deadlines kind of suck ever since they expanded the playoffs, so not holding my breath on that. But yeah, I'll root for them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They should call him Pete Scarecrow Armstrong because he's outstanding in the field, I think. All right. If you watch this back, you're going to see that kicking up. You'll see the wheels turning if you watch that back. All right.
I'm gonna crash out.
One more spot we were right. We'll hit on briefly because look, sometimes you take the softball and you hit it out of the park. So Drew, talk about our last where we were right before we get to some criticism of ourselves.
Yeah, well, just real quick, we were also right about like the bottom of the barrel teams. We're not going to talk too much about it, but the Rockies, the Marlins, the White Sox, these teams are bad. We were right. They are bad.
True.
But yeah, I'll say the Dodgers, and we all thought the Dodgers would be pretty good. I picked the Dodgers to win the World Series. Nothing I've seen has changed that. Now they haven't played like far and away the best team in baseball, but like I just mentioned, like their pitching staff is ravaged right now, and they're still right there with like the best record in baseball. They don't have the best record in baseball, but they're within a few percentage points, and it's scary. I mean, they're a scary team to play, and I think like you take their lineup 1 through 9, I might prefer the Cubs. I might prefer the Phillies, but there's just something about the Dodgers having gotten over the hump last year and winning the World Series. I know they did in 2020 as well, but a lot of different guys. They're a team that knows how to win. They know how to win in October, and even with everything that's gone wrong for them so far, they still have a 2-game lead in the division with other good teams in that division. So we were right. The Dodgers are good, and even if it wasn't in the way we foresaw it happening, they are indeed winning a lot of baseball games.
True that. All right. So you mentioned the World Series there. I think that's a good place to start with where we were wrong. And we'll go to Drew on this one again because it was related to his World Series pick here.
Yeah, I had the Dodgers winning, but I had them playing against the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series, and my justification for that was, yeah, their pitching won't be great, but I trust them to make a trade or some kind of move to improve the pitching staff, like they did last year by getting Corbin Burns, something similar this year. Well, so far, uh, they are absolutely dreadful. They are 16 and 32 right now. I
Uh,
don't know if this is, well, yeah, it's updated to today because they got rained out today, but um, they're far and away in last place of the American League East right now. They've fired their manager, Brandon Hyde. The young guys that they've counted on for so long are not performing to expectations, and the pitching is about as we expected, maybe even worse than we would have expected. I mean, I thought Charlie Morton would at least give you some kind of level of production. He has just been absolutely terrible. But none of them. I mean, I was looking at their pitching staff today because they're playing a four-game set with the Red Sox here, and it's just all of them are just getting hit all over the place. They just look lost, and they look like a team that they did a few years ago before the expectations were high, which was one of the worst teams in all of baseball. The bummer for Orioles fans is you got a new owner, because that
yeah.
was always a big complaint was that the old ownership didn't pay money. Well, you got new ownership. You have all these young guys that have made it to the majors, have had major league success. None of them are extended, and hey, maybe you feel good about not having an extension with Adley Rutschman by the way he's playing, but there's just not much to be excited about. Mike Elias, who is their GM or whatever term they use instead of GM, he seems to be at his best when the team he's running is really really bad and has a top draft pick. Because he hits on those really, really high draft picks. It was like first in the first five picks of the draft. Other than that, I haven't seen a lot from him that makes me think this guy knows what he's doing. He's running a good show. I mean, there is no reason the Orioles couldn't have matched or outdone the Red Sox offer to get Garrett Crochet on that team. Uh, there's no reason. I mean, Corbin Burns clearly wanted to sign on the West Coast. I don't fault them for that. But they could have paid Max Fried. They could have paid Blake Snell. Like they just refuse to do these things, and I would be very concerned about the direction they're in if I'm an Orioles fan.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to feel for Brandon Hyde. He thought that he beat the odds and was going to see the promised land at the end of the rebuild, but it just did not pan out that way. And so, yeah, the Orioles rudderless at the moment, but we'll see where they go.
This
All
also,
right.
I just real
Yeah.
quick thinking about it. Brandon Hyde got fired. Bud Black got fired by the Rockies, and
Yeah.
Derek Shelton got fired by the Pirates. This has to be the earliest in the season that three managers have been fired. Like
Probably.
that. That's it's not even the end of. It's not even June yet, and three teams are without their managers. So pretty wild.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. All right. So let's go to Matt for another place that we were wrong.
Yeah, so I want to just apologize to Mariners fans, any that are watching. I remember being so like viscerally upset by their offseason and the fact that they made like almost zero additions and they were just going to bank on, staying healthy in their rotation, great pitching, all this stuff. And all that happens is they don't stay healthy in their rotation. Outside of Brian Wu, it's like kind of been meh on pitching, and they just have this awesome offense. Like all of their guys just decided, yeah, it's time to hit. And Cal Riley looks like a MVP, good for home run draft. um, it's it's awesome. Like I genuinely do like the Mariners as a team. I have a soft spot for Seattle sports, but I'm also just like I thought that they were going to be the definition of average. And I suppose there's still time, but through this first part of the season, they've been awesome. So nothing but props to Seattle. Good on was it Edgar Martinez, the hitting coach? Like he's got those boys cooking. They were a tough series. I did not expect that.
It's
Yeah.
funny the Mariners and Orioles going into the season. I think we felt similarly about them in that like you have a young core here that we like, but why didn't you do more? But I think both of us gave the Orioles more of a benefit of the doubt because they had performed better in recent years.
Hmm.
Um, but the Mariners are proving us wrong. The Orioles are proving us wrong in completely opposite ways.
Yeah.
All right, let's stick with Matt, and then talk about another place that we maybe we missed a little.
Yeah, the other place I'm gonna say I missed, I'm gonna give myself a miss on the AL Central, just like as a division. I really I remember struggling through some of those, off-season episodes being like, there's not a single talking point for these central divisions. Like they kind of all suck. Like there's just gonna be nothing fun. And you look up a quarter way through the season, and the AL Central's good. Like they're all pretty much really good. Like 4 out of the 5 teams are doing really well this season, and obviously topped off by Detroit and the season they're having. It's just there's a lot of teams from last year who I think we assumed would have some positive regression, kind of, or not positive regression, but just overall regression. Maybe they had some people overperform last year. Maybe Detroit just kind of had a magical who knows what to the end of the season. And all of those things just seem to have carried over. I'm even looking the Royals, right? 28-23. That's their current record right now. Um, that is better than the Padres. That's, about just as good as the Giant. Like, really good team. They're in fourth place in their own division. We talked about the NL West as having this crazy top heavy control of the NL, like all this stuff. The Royals are 28-23 and they're fourth in their own division. Like, that's crazy. And it's such a tight race in the AL Central, barring the White Sox. But honestly, props to the White Sox. They're not even the worst team this year, and that's awesome for them. And I'm really happy for them. But like the rest of the AL Central has just not they've not even been bad. They've just been good, all of them. And obviously the Twins went on this like super good streak of winning, and they were having a down season, but they've caught right back up. They're right in the mix of it, tied with the Guardians. So I missed on the AL Central, man. I thought they were going to be like super boring, and they've actually been one of the more entertaining divisions of baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, as of recording this, I believe this is still true. If you go by B-WAR, Javi Baez has the highest WAR on the best team in the AL right now, and
Javi Baez has been good.
that is the sign of a season that makes me feel good about baseball. All right, so we'll finish our reviews of our preseason predictions with Drew and a couple places that we also missed before we move on.
Yeah, I want to shout out the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't remember exactly where I had them placed in the division, but I did not expect them to be good. Um, they, similar to the Twins, have just been super hot lately. And I know their pitching has been pretty good overall because I check the homer draft standings every year. They're always right near the bottom in home runs given up. Shout out Matt's team. But they're right. They're 3 games behind the Cubs, who we just talked up forever, um, right in the thick of it. And that's, like Arenado is not playing well. The guys, who have not played to expectations, and the Cardinals are right there in an off season that we hated more than anyone else's. So good for the Cardinals. And the other one that I'm gonna say we were wrong on, but maybe more of an incomplete grade, is the Atlanta Braves. Both of us, I believe, had them winning that division, the National League East. Right now, they're 7.5 behind the Phillies. They're in third place. The Mets are trying to do the math right here, 5.5 ahead of them. Um, but they started off so bad. We talked about it on the show. They didn't win until like their 8th game or something like that.
Yep.
Spencer Strider was hurt for most of the year so far. Ronald Acuna Jr. hasn't played yet this year, but right now they are 24-25. They've got themselves right back into the playoff hunt, I'll call it. They still got work to do if they want to win that division. I feel optimistic about them. Ronald Acuna Jr. is coming back as we record this. He's coming back tomorrow, is the expectation. That would be Friday, May 23rd. And I'm excited to see where the Braves go from here. The Mets have been struggling a bit lately. Phillies are good and I think will remain good, but I think the Braves there's still enough time to get right back into it. So far, it hasn't been what we expected, but I'm not out on them yet.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's our little review of our preseason predictions. Ronald Acuna Jr. Baseball is better with him in it, so I'm glad he'll be back starting this weekend. It's going to give a much needed boost to that Braves offense, and who knows where they can go. Like you said, they've been keeping themselves afloat, so who knows where they can go from here. Okay, so let's go to Fan Corner. A lot of noteworthy things to talk about for all of our teams over the course of the last week or so. So let's start with Matt and the Padres.
Yeah, dude. I've been like real positive about the Padres for the last few weeks, and all things considered, we're still, I believe, like 6 games above 500. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and yet, like, this is one of the tougher stretches of baseball I've seen them play in recent years. And we've had some really streaky seasons the past few seasons, and this stretch just felt bad. I mean, we were, for both series, we, I believe, out hit the other team, but we went 0-39 with runners in scoring position. Um, we were close to setting the all-time record, which I believe is like 44 or something like that. Um, and so it's just one of those like it's one thing to just get blown out and just to get obliterated, and it's another to really have like these frustrating types of losses 5, 6 games in a row, where I feel like that can actually impact a team worse than just having a real like throwaway series, right? You can go in and get your cheeks clapped by the Dodgers for a series, or pick your good team, and you walk out of that and you're like, okay, we can right the ship, we can get back to it. But it's like, okay, we just went and had these, 3 straight heartbreakers with the Mariners. Then we had a really tight, heartbreaking game that Dylan Cease actually pitched really well in, lost. And then we do end up getting blown out towards the end of the game. I think we went into the 8th inning down like 2 or 3 runs and end up losing by 14. And then our last game with them, we go into overtime and we take a lead in every single top of overtime. We took the lead, in all these moments, and we blew like 3 saves. And so it's just one of those things. Like, I think these are more demoralizing losses than just getting stomped. So we need a new left fielder, man. Our left field is probably by value given maybe worst in MLB. Right now we are playing Jason Hayward, who can't see a baseball, and Brandon Lockridge, who is, a high energy guy, decent defense, but just provides nothing on offense. And it's such a stark contrast from where we were at with Jurix and Profar last year. Yeah, our left field is bad. Our catching position is, I feel like on when you watch the games, it doesn't feel as bad as the numbers say. But our catching needs to be upgraded. Our bullpen has definitely had some negative regression from where we were. We've had some real big blowout innings. Yeah, it's we're still in a good enough spot that we're going to be competitive. It's just I'm not anywhere near as confident as I was even just last week or the week before that. It feels like we're really going to have to, scratch and claw our way back into not just the division, but kind of the playoff run. I mean, there's a lot of teams that are a lot better than I thought they would be. And at the end of the day, the talent on the roster doesn't matter, right? It's the record you end with. So we may be this great team, but there can be worse teams that still take our playoff spot because they won their games. And I think that's what kind of worries me is you just don't want to give up too much momentum because we are riding purely based off of how hot of a start we had. We're like the opposite of the Braves right now. We had such a strong start, and that's been carrying us. I think we're like 2-8 in our last 10. We cannot beat a team from the AL. It's a mess, but could be worse, I guess.
It certainly could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the riding the waves of the season. For some teams, they're much shorter waves up and down. For some teams, it's longer. I wouldn't be too worried, but at the same time, every win counts, every loss counts. So you
Yeah.
don't want to have weeks like this, and it's really demoralizing.
No.
Yeah, well, let's roll right into the Red Sox. Speaking of short waves to rise and fall, let's talk about the Red Sox.
Yeah, the vibes are, I would say, maybe one tick better than they were a week ago when we talked. They had just come off of a sweep at the hands of the Tigers. Things were bad. I already talked a little bit about the Braves series. They lose the first game. It was Garrett Crochet versus Chris Sale. They unveiled the new City Connects, which I'm a fan of, as you can see. Um, Crochet versus Sale, it was cool, like, the current ace versus the former ace. Um, Good vibes at the park, everything. Red Sox end up losing that game. Garrett Crochet gave up two solo home runs, and then the Red Sox just couldn't score, basically. Um, the next game, like I already mentioned, we had our first like real come from behind victory. Rafael Devers hits his first career walk-off home run. Uh, Really awesome to see. Exciting, vibes are high. Let's ride the momentum to the next day, and we just give up a million runs and lose. So in a game where Devers hits a grand slam, so like even within the games, there's little waves here and there. But um, then the Mets come to town. We take the first two of that series in really like uh, kind of like to me kind of exciting fashion because it was 3-1 the first game and then 2-0 the second game, and it was the bullpen coming through for a lot of innings, more than they expected. And I'll talk about that in a second too. Uh, and again, we're feeling good. The vibes are high, and then we have the series finale yesterday and just can't score any runs against Tyler McGill, and it's versus Crochet. So like, it's just these, the games you expect to win, you're not winning. The games you don't necessarily expect to win, you are winning. I'd like them to just keep winning games. We have a 4-game set with the Orioles at home. Hopefully, they can just take care of business in a way they should, and I'll feel a lot better about them. But I do want to talk a little bit about specific players because um, there's some interesting stuff going on. I mean, I mentioned the bullpen having to pick it up. Walker Buehler got ejected from his return start from the IL in the third inning.
No.
He, it was really, I'm going to talk about this more a little bit later too. It was really kind of the umpire overreacting in my opinion, and it was kind of a crazy situation. But the bullpen came in, took care of business when they had to, so that was cool to see. In that game, our catcher Carlos Narvaez hit a home run, uh, and I want to shout out Carlos Narvaez because this guy he was on the Yankees last year, which that makes it sweeter. He was basically a Yankees prospect, so this is still his rookie season. Um, the same day we traded for Garrett Crochet. So we traded Garrett for Garrett Crochet. The best prospect we gave up is Kyle Teal, who was a catcher who was, you know, looked at as the catcher of the future for the Red Sox. We trade him away. So now we just had Connor Wong. And so we needed another catcher on the roster. We make this minor trade with the Yankees for this guy that most people haven't heard of. Connor Wong gets hurt early in the season, so Narvaez has to take over the bulk catching duties, and he has been awesome. He has been, uh, I don't know if it's number one, but it's like up there in the top three of best defensive catcher. And then lately he's been on a tear with the bat as well, where like he's inserted himself even maybe higher than Christian Campbell into like the rookie of the year conversation. Um, so shout out him. Connor Wong is now back, but Narvaez is still the starting catcher, so that's cool. Whenever that happens, um, it's cool to find a diamond in the rough like that, and especially to get him from the Yankees. It's a little extra sweet. On the flip side, Trevor Story has just been absolutely awful. He has one extra base hit in the last month. His defense, which was like his calling card for most of his career, is down this year, where he's not even a positive defender. And you've got Marcelo Meyer, who is one of our top prospects in AAA, who is a shortstop. I feel like his days are numbered. He means a lot to the clubhouse, it seems. He is a respected veteran. I've always really liked him as a player. He seems like a great guy as a person, but I don't know. He just is hurting the team at this point. Trevor Story being in there, he can hardly do anything, and I'm concerned. I don't know how this plays out. The Red Sox have not shown um, they haven't shown that they're very adept at having the difficult conversations with players, as we've seen with like the Rafael Devers drama and all that. Um, so we'll see. I mean, I feel like his days have to be numbered at this point. It happened, but it's a bummer to see. I just he's finally healthy for the Red Sox, and he just is not playing well at all. And it's a bummer to see.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens in Boston at that shortstop position. Uh, yeah, it's very unfortunate for Trevor Story's time with the Red Sox to be going this way, to be sure. But okay, so let's talk about the Angels for just a brief second. They have played themselves out of, cut them from this segment. So, I'll talk about them for a little bit. Um, Look, as we record, they are on a 7-game win streak. That is pretty good. It's their best since 2022. And they did it by sweeping the Dodgers, which is hilarious. And they also swept the Athletics over the course of this week. It's actually a shout out to one of our favorites, the Cespedes Barbecue. That was actually a mop, four game sweep of the Athletics. So, they coined that, and we'll use it too. So, yeah, 7-game win streak right now. Watching that Dodgers series was just, it made me laugh more than anything else. I think Kenley Jansen getting the opportunity to go up for the save in 2 of those games was awesome. And in that first one, or maybe it was a Saturday one. I can't remember which one, but he intentionally balked Shohei Ohtani from second base to third base
That's a
because he didn't want
classic
him.
Kenley move. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want him, communicating signs to the batter, and so it was very funny to watch Shohei react to that because it's not very often you get to force Shohei Ohtani to do something that he doesn't want to do. Usually, it's him that is dictating the pace of the game and what happens, especially on the base path. And so it was very funny to watch Kenley sort of take the reins and bully Shohei Ohtani around there a little bit. And the key to this 7-game win streak is really Logan O'Hoppe, Zach Neto, and Taylor Ward. O'Hoppe and Ward now have 14 home runs each. That's good for 6th in the majors, tied for 6th in the majors with a couple other people. And they've been playing out of their minds, those two especially. And Neto's just been a really consistent contributor since he's come back to start his season. And so I think when you look at the Angels, there's a lot to like. In a couple years, when O'Hoppe and Neto can get more experience under them. What I would love to happen this season is for guys who will likely not be part of the next winning Angels team, whenever that is, to be traded, and if they're still playing well, to be traded at the trade deadline to sort of give up this year, kind of no matter how well they're doing, I would almost say, and see what you can get for guys who will not be part of that next, seriously winning team. But what likely will happen is just we've shaped up for another normal Angel season of going on a bad skid, then a good skid. Around July, they can convince themselves, especially in this year's AL, they could easily be able to convince themselves that they could sneak in, especially in this year's AL with the way things are shaping up. So what will happen is they will stay put. They may even try to add. I don't know how successful they'll be at doing that. They don't really have anything to give anybody, but they may even try to add a little bit and see what happens. And then they will just continue to not make playoffs this year and be stuck. And so that's where that's where I see it right now, at least in my head. I haven't seen, when they were before these two series, they were playing really bad. And so, I need to see there be some sort of middle between what that looked like, losing series to the Orioles and teams like that. And I need to see them middle out between that and what they've done over the last week or so. The good news is that Mike Trout has made some progress in his rehab. He's running at about the last thing I read was like 80% he was running and with no pain and discomfort. So they're not pushing it, but hopefully he'll get up to full speed and we'll see what the result is there.
Well, Matt, you don't have to run full speed when you hit a home run.
Right.
So.
He does not have to be. That's the other thing is, he said that he can swing without pain. And so when I'm thinking like, if we can get him to like 95%, stick him at DH,
Well, no, that doesn't help Matt, but.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, that helps. And so, that may be what you see happen. But anyway.
Does he want to be an everyday left fielder for the Padres?
Yeah. So the Angels will finish them with, yes, they're on a 7-game win streak now. The next couple series are against, I believe, the Marlins, which starts tomorrow, and then against the Yankees. Mike Trout's almost back. Zach Neto, Ohapi, and them are all playing out of their mind. They will lose 6 of their next 10, and that will be how the next little bit goes. So, all right. So let's move away from Fan Corner back to our locked in segment here to get some predictions done. So we'll start with Drew here. So last week, Drew's prediction was about rivalry weekend, and it was that we would see NL dominance in the rivalry series. So let's hear from Drew about how that went, and then what's your prediction for this week?
Yeah, despite the series that your two teams played in, I was kind of right. There was 11 series that were interleague. National League won 7 out of those 11 series. 33 games in total. The National League won 19 of them. So not the dominance I was expecting, but they took care of business to some extent. But my prediction for this upcoming week is that we're getting to the time of year where teams are going to move on from guys. So I know Matt's been predicting trades. Maybe we'll see a trade. I'd be interested, but I think more likely we might see a significant roster move from somebody that's moving on from a player who is recognizable but maybe no longer contributing. So maybe a Trevor Story, although I think maybe there's probably a little more leash there. A couple other names I wrote down because they just have not been playing well. They're nearing the end of contracts, and teams might be, okay, we're not going to get much for them. Let's just cut them loose. Andrew Vaughn with the White Sox. Luis Rengifo with the Angels has not been playing well. They might want to get someone fresher in there. Ryan Mountcastle with the Orioles. I think in an ideal world, they'd like to trade him, but he has just been terrible. Ryan McMahon with the Rockies. I've seen that there are some teams interested in him, so maybe they can trade him, but really he has been bad, and they should have traded him maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And then, like Matt mentioned, Jason Hayward. If the Padres can find some other solution for left field, Jason Hayward could be at risk of DFA. So I'm not saying one of those guys definitely will, but those are just some names that I highlighted. I think we're getting to that time of year where teams are like, okay, if this isn't working by now, it's not going to work, and we need to start winning more games.
All right, so we'll move on to Matt. Last week, as a reminder, his prediction was that there will be a notable trade in a sport. So let's go to Matt to check in on that and then get our prediction for this week.
Yeah, and notably, that was a double down on the week prior, being that there would be a trade in the MLB. I, double or nothing, and I said there'd be a trade in sports. That didn't happen. Flipping the table now. no trades are going to happen this week in either of our sports. I believe it. I'll stand firm on this one. Maybe this is a reverse jinx. Who's to say? There's a couple moves that I'd love to see either of my teams make. So if this is the reverse jinx we need, is me taking another L on the Dingers and Stingers show, I'll do it. I'll take one for my team. And yeah, no trades this week. None.
The GMs are sleeping. Turn off your phones. It's over. Not this week.
Not this
All
week.
right. So let's finish our MLB segment as we always do with a check-in on our homer draft. So Drew, take us through where we're at with the home run draft that we did this year.
Well, great news for this week. We are officially both in the positives. Matt has a total of 4. I have a total of 2. So things are getting real tight. Having Shohei Ohtani has been helpful for my team, and Cal Raleigh as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have 18 more home runs than Matt, and I expect that number to go up as Trout still isn't playing games. Tyler Soderstrom may never play first base ever again, it seems. But yeah, I still have given up 60 more home runs at this point with my pitching staffs. Padres had a bad week. That kind of evened the playing field a little bit, but as a whole, Matt's pitching has been better than mine, and so. But things are getting tight, and I'll keep bringing you updates every week.
Yeah, we'll see where we go. Matt, I mean, some thoughts about where your team's at here.
My thoughts are kind of just in this like whirlwind of like, I guess I come from the fantasy sports universe where like versatility is everything. And so I have all these guys with like multiple position eligibilities, and that has truly ruined me. And I see the rumors of Christian Campbell working out at first base. That's my second baseman.
That could not
My
help.
first
Yeah,
base,
that could
my
be
first
really
baseman
unhelpful.
is moving to the outfield. My outfield plays DH or is hurt. I'm basically just
I would let
banking
you
on the
swap
fact
guys
that
around. If Campbell becomes a first baseman, you can shift him to first and put Soderstrom at second. I don't know if that's going to help you.
at this point, Soderstrom, I gotta DFA Soderstrom down. Like, I gotta cut him.
The moves we were hoping for were in our own teams all along, in our homer draft teams all along. The moves
Yeah,
we were
Well,
waiting.
and Matt, it's the risk you took by taking because we drafted like 2 weeks into the season, and you chose the current home run leader at that time, which was Tyler
Yeah,
Soderstrom, and
yeah.
in retrospect, maybe that wasn't the move.
To be fair, I would settle, even if he hadn't hit a single home run since, I would settle for him simply playing the position I drafted him at. Like, truly, I think that's the craziest thing to me is how many of the players I drafted decided that they weren't interested in the positions I drafted them at. And whether that was their move or the franchise move, who's to say? But it is, I mean, at this point, I have been sitting between like 1 home run and like 5 at my most, I think. And you've just been wickedly shooting up and down between like low positives and like negative 12. And I think my best shot at winning this thing is I could end the season at 4 potentially, and that might have to be enough for me. I'm gonna have to play some good defense, so I don't know. There, no thoughts. My thoughts are sad.
It's pretty awesome how dead even 3 home runs per pitching staff has worked out to like the single home runs per
Right.
play. Like
Right.
it's 4-2. We've been doing this for like 6 weeks. We haven't got above like 10.
This is an actual baseball score.
And I don't imagine it changing anytime soon, really.
Yeah, I got to bring in my closer now
Yeah, really lock it down.
for the
All
last
right.
3 quarters of the season.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for our MLB talk today. We're going to move on to the NFL. This time of year, there can be some news, there can be no news, there can be a lot of news. This week, there's a little bit of something. So where we wanted to start is with the San Francisco 49ers. A couple of big extensions they made since the last time we recorded. So I wanted to make sure we hit those. So the biggest one, just because of the position he plays, they did it. They gave Brock Purdy a 5-year, $265 million extension with $181 million guaranteed.
Great for
It
that.
is worthy of mentioning if you're not familiar. This is not a record-breaking contract for a quarterback. This is not this will not be a top 5 contract by the end of it for at the quarterback position. I don't believe by annual average value. Certainly, I would say. So not really something that is a market resetting type of thing, but it is a big contract for a player in any case. And then they also extended a linebacker, Fred Warner. They gave him a 3-year, $63 million extension with $56 million of that guaranteed. So the 49ers, earlier in this offseason, they extended George Kittle as well. They've also traded Deebo Samuel, and they let Talanoa Hufanga go to the Broncos, things like that. So the 49ers are locking up the players who they think are going to be part of their team over the next few seasons. The core of this team looks to be Brock Purdy and George Kittle on offense, and Fred Warner on the defensive side. So what do we think about the players they've chosen to ride with and the ones they've chosen to let go? Do we like these decisions? Do we think we make the 49ers better? How do we feel about the decisions they're making in that front office?
I fully believe that, and you mentioned it, the Brock Purdy contract is not record breaking. He is not the highest paid quarterback. He's not the highest paid player, all that. He is the 8th highest paid player in all of the NFL, however. And do we believe that he's a top 8 player in the NFL? Not a chance. I fall on the side of being a bigger Purdy hater than I think the standard NFL fan. And that's not to say, like, he's a great success. He was, Mr. Irrelevant, and he has had great success. Good for him. I don't believe that he's a top 10 quarterback. I don't believe he's a top 16 quarterback. I could keep that, kind of bit going, but I think he's not a great quarterback. He is being paid higher than Justin Herbert. He's being paid higher than Lamar Jackson. He is being paid higher than Jalen Hurts. He's being paid well above the likes of guys like Patrick Mahomes. And so it's just when you look at this list of quarterbacks, and obviously, yes, every year cap goes up, contracts get more inflated. You have to take into account all that. It feels like one of those things that falls into the Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, where it's like you have heavily invested into a guy that has proven nothing and is physically pretty limited. And that's not to say that they won't have a good team, but it's also, I think my thought with it is it limits them to this. Like, they are no longer going to be able to operate as a team that has a cheap quarterback. It fundamentally changes the makeup of a team once you have signed a franchise quarterback. And I mean, famously, Dallas, you're familiar with this. The Legion of Boom happens because of a rookie contract, Russell Wilson. That's like a huge portion of how that team was built. And not just the Legion of Boom, but the players they had on offense as well and were able to acquire. And it's, they're really capitalizing and saying, we're going all in on these next couple of years because I don't think Kyle Shanahan outlives Brock Purdy's contract with the 49ers. I really don't. I don't think Brock Purdy gets them over the hump. If they win, it will be despite Brock Purdy. I don't think that he's making the team around him better. And yeah, Fred Warner, great signing. Dude's a stud. Hate that he's staying in the division. Brock Purdy, I was praying for that all offseason. The reaction on social media when he was re-signed was almost exclusively NFC and more specifically NFC West fans commenting, praising, praising this signing. And you could not have a more positive reaction from your division rivals on a signing than I think this one. Um, and I fall into the same boat. Like, maybe it's herd mentality, but I just personally don't think he's very good. So I won't ramble on too much longer, but
Yeah, my take is I'm a little more middle of the road than Matt is. I also don't think Brock Purdy is anything special. I don't think he's bad by any means, but I don't think he's in the upper echelon of quarterbacks. But he's also not like the money seems like a lot, but like you said, Matt and Dallas, he's not making upper echelon money per se. I mean, quarterbacks get paid more than other positions. That's just a fact, and they go up every year. That's a fact. But by guaranteed money, Dallas, you put in the notes here, it's 181 million guaranteed, and that's the amount that I'm more concerned about than the full possible total because rarely do we see people get their full possible total in the NFL. So on ESPN's website, they have the top six guaranteed money for quarterbacks. It doesn't go beyond that, but he's not top six. There goes Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, which LOL, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence. So you look at that list, and the guys who stick out to me are I'm not even going to include Deshaun Watson because that was just insanity the whole way. But the guys who stand up to me are Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence because uh, Josh Allen is an MVP, Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes has won multiple Super Bowls. Um, Brock Purdy has been to a Super Bowl, so I don't want to bunch him in with like that label, but the 49ers with Brock Purdy were clearly a better team than the Cowboys with Dak Prescott or the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. Um, but I think when Dak Prescott got paid and when Trevor Lawrence got paid, people kind of scratched their heads and thought, what are they doing? And that's the same reaction I'm seeing with Brock Purdy. And you could easily point to Dak Prescott and Trevor Lawrence getting paid that money and those teams being bad, and you'd be right. It just seems like this is the way of the NFL now. Is you pay your quarterback, unless you're the Seahawks, you don't. But like maybe that works out for the Seahawks. You know what I mean? Like that, like it worked out when they got rid of Russ. We'll see what happens with Geno Smith, but I think my take on it is he worth this money? No, probably not. Uh, I'm happy to see he didn't break like any records or anything because I think that would have been absurd. And I think the 49ers as a franchise deserve a little bit of credit compared to other franchises. I think the Cowboys are a mess. I think the Jaguars are a mess. Um, I think the 49ers have proven like even with the ups and downs, they make smart personnel decisions more often than not. And yes, they've let certain guys go, like Debo Samuel is out the door, and they've now paid Brock Purdy. We'll see what happens, but I'm not like this is gonna screw them over for generations. That's not the way I see it. Um, but I don't think it was the smartest move they could have made. And then Fred Warner, he's the captain of their defense. Uh, it makes sense. He's a middle linebacker, correct?
middle linebacker and well deserving of the contract, in my
Yeah. So
opinion.
like middle linebackers who, they maybe don't get as much love in the NFL as they used to, but clearly one of the best. So uh, that's the way the NFL works, and the way a lot of sports work is you have to at certain points make decisions about your roster and who you are able to afford to keep and who you don't. And 49ers have made their bet, and we'll see what happens.
Let me preface, let me ask you guys a clarifying question. Do you, and this is a broader sports, I think, question, but I'll dial it into this conversation. Do you guys believe that the ultimate take of success in sports is winning a championship? Because I think there is the conversation when it comes to this of like, good for the Niners, good for Brock Purdy. They get their guy, they have a sense of stability, and in and of itself, that can be a success. But I also want to hear from you guys, like when you're kind of talking about all this, is the measure of success Super Bowls and championships, or is it kind of just being good and stable, in your opinions?
Well, when you talk about it really depends on expectations. But
Because I'll circle back to my point of this question. I just want to hear from you guys.
I think when it comes to the conversation about a contract, is a contract worth it? I think winning a Super Bowl, or at the very least, like being a perennial playoff team, makes it worthwhile to me. I think if this is a 5-year contract for Brock Purdy, if the 49ers, let's say they go to 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years and 4 playoff appearances in the next 5 years, but they don't win a Super Bowl, I still think, well, that's still a successful time period in 49ers history. It comes down to, like, do you think it was because of Brock Purdy or not? I don't know. That's always hard to say. But yeah, I think winning a Super Bowl in the next 5 years makes it without a doubt worth it for 49ers fans.
Yeah. Dallas, what was your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah. I was going to mention this as we before we ended this conversation, but I went ahead and took a look. Because I also watch Brock Purdy play a lot, and stuff like that, and I had it in my head, he's kind of average game manager type, and then I went to go to my favorite stats website to confirm my priors, and that is Ben Baldwin's website, rbsdon'tmatter.com, rbsdm.com. That is where I get my NFL stats and figures and stuff. And so I went there, all happy, ready to confirm the fact that Brock Purdy's average. And unfortunately, the only thing that I found was that since 2021, he is number 1 in expected points added and completion percentage over expected composite score on that website, which are 2 stats that I really lean on to say whether a player is good or not. So look, I think that, but to your question, and I think that applies to your question in that I think that for a contract to be worth it, the player just has to be at the level of that the contract, at or below the level that the contract would say that you think he is, right? So as far as guaranteed money goes for quarterbacks, Drew mentioned it, right? He's not inside the top 6. Well, maybe his performance means that they got a pretty good deal in that case. And so I think when I think about players that have played for the Seahawks, for example, there have been, players that I would call, good to, great players who didn't win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks,
Yeah.
and so I think that for me, it doesn't, championships are the end all be all, but they certainly do. They can help a player who isn't as good be remembered as better. But I think that, I don't need a Super Bowl to think a player's good or great even.
Yeah, for players, sorry.
I was going to say, taking out, you go.
But yeah, I want to clarify my comments on that. Like, a player being good or not, to me, Super Bowls don't matter, especially in a sport like football where it so much is based on teammates and everything and your opponents and everything. For the 49ers fans, if Brock Purdy is MVP candidate for the next 5 years, but they don't make the playoffs, you can say he's worth the contract without thinking the contract was wise. You know what I mean? So there's a difference there.
Yeah.
But I think,
and I will say, my question was more based towards I was gonna say my question was aimed more towards the team rather than the player, because as an individual isolated thing, good for Brock Purdy. Like this is awesome and it's a good contract for him. You like to see players get their bag. Like I'm all for that. But I'm saying as a team, and I'll kind of bring my point up. The reason I'm asking is because I did the calculation here. He's gonna attribute basically 20% of their salary cap starting this season. Um, the highest a quarterback has ever accounted for in a Super Bowl appearance is 18%, and that was Peyton Manning on the 2008-2009 Colts. Um, Patrick Mahomes famously is the only person who's ever gotten close, and he was almost 2 points behind Peyton Manning in 2022. Every other quarterback appearance, the highest on this list you're going to see is maybe 12%. You'll see a lot ranging in like the 8 to 12%. Um, and there's a
I'm
lot of quarterbacks
curious.
who are a lot lower.
I'm curious how that math works when like Patrick Mahomes is higher than Brock Purdy on this list of guaranteed money and all that.
Because
So
guaranteed money is for the entire contract. When you look at the actual average of annual salary, that's how much is going to be allocated. And assuming if you make the playoffs, you're probably getting most, if not all, of your allotted annual salary for that year. Just because a lot of it has to do with playing time or in-season incentives, games won, Super Bowl appearances, Pro Bowls, etc. That's where a lot of that value gets kind of boosted.
he's not top
So
six in that either, from what I'm looking at, from the annual average.
which is fair, and it also depends on how the cap hit is going to play out, right? Like, because eventually, at any point in contract, it can be restructured. You can move certain, big hits of a salary to certain years via, bonuses and all that. Salary cap as a whole is a very weird thing in the NFL that very few people know how to accurately like play with. But I'm going purely based off of what a player's cap hit in a given year was for their team. So in 2000, it's the 2009 season, Peyton Manning had a $23.2 million cap hit for that season. That accounted for 18.88% of his team's salary cap that season. Second closest is Patrick Mahomes in 2022, where he accounted for 35.79 million, which was 17.19%. And so then you take uh, what Purdy's expected annual salary is going to be and the expected hit. That will vary. They might have backloaded the contract, they might have front loaded the contract. I don't know the terms of the contract that deeply, but if you just take the average, his average for this year would be about 3 points higher than Peyton Manning. And that's the highest ever. So that's where that conversation for me, I was kind of taking it is I just think it's an interesting conversation point when you look at what a quarterback makes annually versus what it means for a team. Because generally speaking, until that contract, and it could be something where at the end of this contract, when that numbers come down and the contract is seen more favorably, they could make a Super Bowl run then. But it's just interesting to me that as far as Super Bowl appearances go, he's probably, because it looks like your cap falls in terms of percentage, 1 to 2% every season, based off of the inflation of the salary cap versus your contract. Um, we're not looking at, because I don't put him in the same category as Peyton Manning. I don't put him in the same category as Patrick Mahomes. Um, you look at some of these San Francisco quarterbacks that have made their appearances. Jimmy Garoppolo was only at 10%. Um, so it's Brock Purdy. The last time he made it was at 0.4%. So I just find it interesting thinking like how much can they keep this team going when they're going to lose a lot around the kind of the perimeter. Famously, outside of Brock Purdy, they're actually not super great at drafting under this John Lynch, regime. They've had a lot of swings and miss in the top 3 rounds. They were obviously able to hit gems like George Kittle. They're able to hit guys like, Brock Purdy, but they also have missed on a lot. And if you're not good at drafting, you're never going to be able to build a team when you're paying a quarterback upwards of 20% of your salary cap. So I don't know. We don't have to keep talking about it, but I find it very interesting because like you just go down this list and quarterbacks don't take up a ton of their team's contract or a ton of their salary cap. Tom Brady in all of these performances sits between 9 and 12%. Peyton Manning spiked at 18, but then most of his appearances sit between 14 and 10%. And it's just when you see the actual success, and I personally come from Super Bowls are success. There are outside factors that you'd love to see. You love to see a team that's, fun, popular. You like to see players getting paid. You like to see a team that is competitive. But at the end of the day, sports are sports because you're supposed to win, right? Like there is a winner and a loser. You're supposed to win. That's the whole point. And so for me, like Super Bowl is peak. And when the Rams were in the Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford took up 10%.
Not to shit over your whole argument, because I think you're right in what you're saying, but what I found in my research is this cap hit is not close to what you're saying it's going to be based on the breakdowns.
Well, that could be for this year if they, let's say, backloaded the contract.
It's 2.7 this year, 8.4 next year, 9.9 the following year, and then I think they don't have the data for what the cap will be after that, so they don't have. So I don't know.
Are you talking by percentage, or is that how much his cap hit is?
Percentage.
There's not a chance if he's averaging 53 million a year versus the 279 salary cap this year. That's 20%.
I'm just this is from
unless he's making.
.com.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm at Sports Track, but like, unless he's getting a lot backloaded, there's no shot that that's his percentage, just purely based off of the.
Well, he is getting. It looks like it's backloaded. 1.1 million 2025, 8.3 million or so 2026, 11.3 2027, and then it goes way up for 28, 29.
So 28, 29, are they talking? Because like if the average is 53.
Yeah, 28.
Like that's the thing is the average of the contract is 53. So that hit is going to happen at some point.
I don't know. Maybe this is over my head, but this is what I'm seeing on there. On overthecap.com.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see because I don't know the details of the exact layout of the contract. As I said, he could be playing for like $2 million this year. That can happen. It just means the 53 average is taking that into account, which means other years are going to be that much higher. So
yeah, the cap number goes way up later. That's true. They don't have the percentage yet because I'm guessing they don't know what the cap is in 2028 yet.
Yeah, you can really only project out like a year or two.
But yeah, it goes, the cap number is what I'm looking at. It goes 9 million to 24 to 30 to 57 to 72 to it goes way up later. So, we'll see what happens. But
yeah.
Yeah, any way you slice it, the Niners will be moving forward with Brock Purdy at quarterback. I think, and we'll see how that works out for them. I think that the pick of Brock Purdy did actually save that franchise, in a big way from being very average. Because their other drafted quarterback in this era was Trey Lance. And if that was the only quarterback they had, then they would have been in some serious trouble. Ironically, the pick of Brock Purdy is maybe what saved them from being average or worse. They reward themselves for making that pick, and they reward Brock Purdy for, performing well enough to keep them afloat. And so we'll see how that works out for them as far as championships go. The NFC is certainly tough at the top, but it's not hard to get there. It's not hard to get to the top of the NFC these days, but it is, those top teams are pretty hard to beat. So we'll see if the Niners can put it together. But we want to end our show this week with our favorite segment, Dingers and Stingers. And so we'll start again this week with the negative. We'll start with the stingers, and we'll start with Drew. So hit us with your stinger this week.
Yeah, my stinger this week is umpires in Major League Baseball who just the ego is too big. I mean, you're gonna make mistakes on calls. That's gonna happen. But when so here's I'll go over what happened with Walker Buehler very quickly. He hits Francisco Lindor with a pitch. It was like a curveball that went inside, hit his left foot. Lindor didn't really move out of the way, which technically you're supposed to make an attempt to move out of the way. That didn't bother me too much, but it kind of bothered Walker Buehler. So he was a little bit mad. And then Lindor steals second. He's safe. The pitch that he stole on was right down the middle, and the umpire called it a ball because the way the catcher had moved was like, it made it hard to see. And so Walker Buehler got mad. He was like, where was that? And then the umpire steps towards him and takes his mask off and starts yelling at Walker Buehler. And so Walker Buehler yells back, and then he gets thrown out of the game. And it's the third inning. The bullpen is already taxed. It was just honestly ridiculous because I'm trying to look at, okay, Mike Estabrook was his name. He totally overreacted and made it a bigger deal than it needed to be. And then Walker Buehler said some stuff that would obviously get someone kicked out, but I don't know if he would have said that if it wasn't instigated by the umpire. Anyway, really annoying whenever that happens. It just happened the other day, so that's what makes me think of it. But also, if we introduce the ABS system, it wouldn't happen. I'm not like super furious that Mike Estabrook called this pitch a ball, because from his point of view, it would have been hard to tell. But when we have this technology, it already exists, and we're not using it yet because we love the human element of calling games. I'm team, let's get it right as often as possible, and we can avoid annoying things like this, because it really, like, Red Sox ended up winning that game, and that was great. But like, that throws off your bullpen for the next 2 or 3 days, having to use your bullpen that much in one game when you're not expecting to have to do that. So that is my stinger for the week. It was that incident, but it's a trend. You'll see it once every couple weeks of an umpire feeling a little too big for his britches and making it about him, and I just hate when that happens.
Yeah. Also, just a couple of general disaster classes from umpires over the course of the rivalry weekend. I think there were a few notable games where it's just missed call after missed call. So who knows what's going on there. But all right, so let's move to Matt's stinger for the week before we move on to the good.
Yeah, but I mean, mine's pretty quick. Pretty much just the Padres are kind of ass right now. It's never fun to be in the midst of a losing streak like this, especially like we talked about, just a lot of like heartbreaking losses too. Definitely, it's been a bummer of a week for the Padres, but what can you do?
All right, well, hopefully times start to look up for the Padres. Who do they have the next couple series?
A lot of good teams. A lot of good teams. Let me tell you exactly. I know we're playing like the Braves.
Oh, lucky you! You get the Braves when Acuna comes back. That's pretty.
Of course,
nice luck. Nice luck there.
Well, you got that nice 4-game sweep to start the year, but
yeah.
Technically, yeah, we already have the tiebreaker over them. But yeah, so we're playing Braves, Marlins, Pirates. Then we go to the Giants, Brewers, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Royals, Phillies. So we got like a couple series after the Braves, and then it's just a gauntlet.
I feel good about your next few weeks. You'll get some of those wins back, for
Thanks,
sure.
pal.
I mean, Marlins and Pirates, that's easy work. Okay. So let's go to the good with the dingers, and let's go back to Drew for your dinger for this week.
Yeah, my dinger this week, the Red Sox unveiled their City Connects. I'm wearing a t-shirt version of it right here. It's Green Monster based. They were the last team of this year, I believe, to unveil a new City Connect. There was, I think, 8 total teams that got new versions this year. So it's the first round of second batches. And the Dodgers also got a second one last year because their first one was so abysmal. So, and so out of the 9 second wave City Connect jerseys, all of them are hits. The league or whoever's designing these has figured out what we like. I think the first wave when 28 teams got it, uh, I would say maybe like if you're being generous, like 10 of them were good, maybe 12 of them were good. Most of them were pretty not good. To from like to just absolutely disgusting, ugly. Um, the 9 teams who have gotten second round ones, they all look great. Dodgers are great. Red Sox are great. Uh, the Rockies got new ones that look really good. The White Sox have the Chicago Bulls looking ones that I think look pretty cool. Marlins got cool Miami Vice kind of style ones. I'm not going to remember every team off the top of my head here. Giants got like, kind of hippie ones, um, which they're not my favorite, but compared to their old fog ones, like look way better. So as a whole, I like what they're doing, and it makes me really excited to see the next round for other teams, even the ones who already had good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these jerseys are all really fun. I like the mention of the Giants ones because I like those. I like those too, and I like the Chicago ones too. Those are divisive, but I think I like them. Okay, so we'll end our show here with Matt's dinger for the week, and let us celebrate some good news here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we'll jump into this more in the future, and as more updates come out, we've got some years for it. But I was really excited to see that the NFL owners the motion passed for NFL players to play in the Olympics for the flag football game. I absolutely respect the dudes who do this at the top level, but I could care less about watching them at the Olympics. I would love to see my favorite players playing at the Olympics. I wrote it's so fun. Like in my opinion, the best parts of baseball and basketball these past few years have been kind of watching the global competition for each of them. And the NFL has just never had that. Um, they've never had that opportunity really. And so now that we're going to have that opportunity, I'm really excited, and I'm excited to see what other countries kind of bring to the table. It's obviously not full contact, NFL term football, but it's a start, right? Like it's a good first step in that direction. So I'm excited to see football on a global level and see what some of these countries got, man. I think it's going to be real fun.
Yeah, I'll have more thoughts on this if we discuss it in a future episode. But yeah, I'm very curious who gets the nod to be quarterback for this team.
Hmm.
Because you only get one, right? I mean, there'll probably be a backup, but um, and I am very curious what other countries show up with because, you know, while US is maybe dominant in other sports as well, there are at least other countries that take basketball seriously. There are other countries that take baseball seriously. There's not there, you might get a few players here and there, but for the most part, there's not another
It's
country
going to be
that
like
loves football the way America loves football. So I'm curious to see what happens.
the only other professional leagues are Canadian and German, and we see how many of those guys come over here and have success. So
Yeah.
we'll see, man.
Yeah.
But either way, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, for me, and last thing on this, but we'll build a roster in a future episode, and we'll do all that. But quarterback comes down to the rules. Can they run?
They
That's a
have
big
to.
rule. That's a big rule. Like, are they able to take off like in a normal football game, or can they
It's got
not?
to
Do
be
they have
Lamar.
to? Do they have
Uh,
to throw?
so
That's 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 a rule that I'll be
that
bringing up
rule is
too.
already established. They cannot rush or they cannot like take off even if they're getting rushed unless there's a handoff or a pass or something. So a lot of the professional teams do the like, I hand the ball off to the quarterback. Um, and that way he has the option because they don't have to wait to rush either. It's instant. They snap, the guy rushes.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. So that makes a difference in who we pick for sure.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so yeah, great. It'll be great to see, NFL players at the Olympics. It'll be fun. Get those personalities involved in that kind of a competition. It's gonna be great fun.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely some good stuff there. So that's it for this week. As always, appreciate the discussion for both baseball and football this week. It's been fun. Yeah, thanks for listening. If you listened to us this week, thanks for watching. Subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't yet. Follow us on Instagram at Dingers and Stingers, and we'll have some fun there. And until next week, take care, and we will see you next time.
Bye.